This video is on federalism, and federalism is the division of power between state government and national government, where they are basically equal to each other. So we have certain powers that are given to the national government, certain powers that are given to the state government. And we find this division of power in the 10th Amendment, and we will look at that here in a few minutes. But the powers that are granted to the national government there on the left-hand side are called delegated powers. And then powers that are given to the states are called reserved powers. And then there are certain powers that both of them have. Both the state and the national government can tax. They can both provide for the public welfare. They both can make laws. They both can borrow money, build roads, charter banks, things like that. Those are called concurrent powers. So as you're looking at this, make sure that you understand that under the Articles of Confederation, we were a confederacy, and we're going to look at that here in a second, where the states had the power and they gave the national government certain powers. In our federal government, the national and the state governments share powers. And so let's look at this really quick. Just a little bit of a review. There on the right-hand side, we're familiar with the confederacy, where the states are really sovereign. They meet all four characteristics. And it says underneath, authority is centered in the states, most of the power. So under the Articles of Confederation, the states really had all the power, and they came together and gave this very, very weak national government a few powers, but we know that there were lots and lots of issues and weaknesses under that. That in the center, the federal government, like what we have, the authority is divided between a central and state governments, and they get their powers from the people, this idea of popular sovereignty. So the people give their consent to the states, and the people give their consent to the national government. So the state government and the national government get their powers from the people. Under the Articles of Confederation, the national government got its powers from the states. Unitary form of government. This is where you have a national government that gives powers to the states. And you'll notice the United Kingdom, Japan, and Sweden are all examples of that. Indiana is also another example of and the individual 50 states have a unitary form of government. Indianapolis is where our state government lies, but then all of the towns and cities have their own powers. But if Indiana decided to take that power away from them, they could any time that they wanted to. They only give those powers to these local governments just to make their job easier. How that's different from a federal government, our national government cannot take powers away from the states. And so we have a federal government. The people give power to the state. The people give power to the national government. And you notice they are right there on the same plane. Under the Confederacy, the states have the power, and they give that very little powers to the national government. In a unitary form, and notice it starts with UNI, that means one. You really only need one layer or level of government, just because these are much smaller states. The United States is far too large to operate as a unitary form of government, just because we are so big. Issues that take place in California or Alaska or Hawaii are things that we on a regular basis don't have to worry about in Indiana. So Indiana takes care of its business and the things that they have to deal with. California is left to deal with what they need to deal with, and we don't have any concerns about the national government dissolving state governments, because they just don't have the power. So federal government, people are the source of power. And they give power to the states, and the national government, they're on the same plane. A confederacy, the states is where most of the power are. They are sovereign, and they give some powers to a very weak national government. Under a unitary form of government, this is states that are very, very small, and they don't need layers of government. And so you have one national government that gives some powers to the local governments, but they can and have the power to dissolve those anytime that they want to.